What is up, everybody? Welcome into another Friday afternoon AMA Week 15 Fantasy Football Playoff Edition. Welcome in, everybody. Congratulations to those of you that have made it this far, that have made it to the Fantasy Football Playoffs. Even more congratulations to the people that don't need to play this week because you have a first-round bye. That coveted first-round bye, man, it's very, very important. Your probability of winning the championship rises exponentially, basically, with that first round bye. But if you don't have a first round bye, hopefully we can help figure things out this week to get you on to next week for the semifinals. Or if you didn't make the playoffs at all, let's look towards 2025. Let's go. Antonio is in the chat. You are first, my man. You are definitely first. P to the R is in the chat. Fridays just in general, absolutely. Fridays with Addison, even better. Appreciate you, man. Jamie's in the chat. What up, dude? What up? Connor, thank God I had buy-in leagues and I'm rolling Stafford as QB2. Yeah. I had Cup in one league that I already had a buy-in, so thank goodness. But I have Matt Stafford starting in Scott Fishbowl, so feels bad. All right, let's kick things off. Let's go up to the very top. Antonio was kicking us off. What up, Addy? Happy Friday. Need a starting tight end in 1.5 tight end premium, first round of the playoffs. Brenton Strange, Calcaterra, or Jordan Akins. All of the backups, all of the injured tight ends, all have the backups. So this is very, very interesting this week. I am partial towards Jordan Akins because of the role that David Njoku had. I did see the news, or at least it was floated out there, that Cleveland was going to go for a tight end by committee approach between Akins and they have some other another guy that they had on the roster that I forget what his name is, and then they brought up somebody else, I think, from the practice squad. I'm partial to Jordan Akins. I really like Brenton Strange as well. Hashtag Penn State. So love him in that role too. He did really well prior to the season with Evan Ingram out, or not prior to the season, at the start of the season with Evan Ingram out, but that's also with Trevor Lawrence. So I don't know if we really trust Mac Jones in this situation. Calcaterra, I think, has the best of both worlds, to where he has the best quarterback, the best offense. We've seen the role without Dallas Goedert. And so I think I'm going to lean Calcaterra in this one. I am partial to Jordan Akins, but I think I'm going to lean towards Calcaterra. And if you want John Paulson's backup, he has Calcaterra ranked the highest at tight end. Internet. Are we back? I can't tell if we're back yet. Chat, are we back? We back. Bit rate is going through it though. Hold on, we're almost there. We're back. Haven't had one of those since I switched to new internet, so glad to see the new internet is now working out. All right, Antonio. I don't know where I broke out through all that, but Paulson agrees with me. He has the same order where it would be Calcaterra, Akins, Strange. So I'd lean Calcaterra on this one as your start this week. And then the other question, start two between Tillman, Sincere McCormick, Keenan, or Mark Andrews. No tight end premium, but it would stack with Lamar. Very interesting. I think I like Tillman if he plays. I like Tillman. My one fear with Tillman, though, is I don't know if he's the one that's going to get McDuffie or if Judy is going to get McDuffie, but the target share condensing a little bit because there's no Njoku might be nice. McCormick seems pretty solid. Keenan could be kind of hit or miss. I think Andrews is a firm no on this one. I think my decision is really between the three, the two wide receivers and McCormick. I think I would lean for McCormick for the touch floor, just to give you like a consistent touch basis, as consistent as he could be. Although it seems like he's definitely consistent now. And then I think I would lean towards Tillman, but let's see. So Cedric Tillman for Paulson is flex 74. Sincere is flex 68. Keenan is flex 59. So he would say go Keenan against the Vikings defense, which I don't disagree with. So he would tell you to go Sincere and Keenan. I think I agree with that one too. I do like Cedric Tillman. Just for Andrews is flex 89, so he's definitely last on this list. Paulson would say go Keenan and Sincere. I agree with that. I think if you need upside, I don't think Sincere McCormick offers upside. So if you had to, I don't know if Thursday night last night killed you in one way, like if you played against Puka or if you were the one that played Juwan Jennings or Debo or anything like that, and you need more upside, or just in general, you're projected to lose, and you kind of need a bit more ceiling, then I would probably play both wide receivers. I think if you need a bit more just production that's not going to kill you, then I'd play Sincere and Keenan. So that might be my kind of cop-out answer for this one on how I would go through. Something fell downstairs. On how I would go through those three. Mike, in the one quarterback PPR no tight end premium, trying to figure out who to play this week, starting between Marv, Nico, Flowers, JSN, Jonnu, possible fill-in, Tillman, Kincaid, Leggett, Hunter Henry. Man. So Nico's starting. That's an easy one. Flowers is starting, JSN is starting, Jonnu's starting. So really it's just, would I play any of these guys over Marv? And I might play Tillman over Marvin Harrison Jr. The Marvin Harrison Jr. saga is just so frustrating that I think I might play Cedric Tillman over Marv. Let's see, where does Paulson have Marv? He's got him at flex 70, 4 spots ahead of Cedric Tillman, separated by 0.5 PPR fantasy points. So not that big of a difference. New England has given up some pretty big games against wide receiver. Kansas City has too, but Kansas, and especially with Jameis Winston just chucking it, but that could also be, we'll see how, I don't know if weather could potentially impact that Cleveland game. I haven't really heard anything about the weather, but it is up north versus Arizona's down in Arizona in a dome. Maybe there's a weather factor that kind of plays out over the next couple of days. But I think I would lean towards playing Tillman over Marv. I think they present the same upside, but I think Tillman kind of offers a nicer floor just because James is probably going to throw 40, 50 times against Kansas City, and their defense is a bit weaker than New England's against the pass. I think I'd play Tillman over Marv, but I think I'm good with the other Nico, obviously, in Flowers, JSN, Jonnu. I think you're good with all of that. I just might consider playing Tillman over Marv. And then Antonio, again, who's been a member for 11 months, by the way. Thank you so much for the support, Antonio. Stroud is still over Caleb in Dynasty by how much? I would still have CJ Stroud over Caleb. Basically, I'm just leaning my hat on the rookie season that CJ Stroud had versus the rookie season that Caleb is currently in progress of. Stroud, I think, has the best individual wide receiver as well in Nico Collins, though Caleb probably, you can make the argument that if Diggs was not on the team, has the better group as a whole. But Stroud has the better individual alpha wide receiver than Caleb. I would still take Stroud over Caleb, but it's really not by much. It's definitely not a first differentiator between the two, like it potentially could have been prior to the season. But I think I don't think I would downgrade from Stroud to Caleb in a second. So it's kind of that weird ambiguous gray area in between, not a first, but also not a second. It's somewhere in and around there. Probably more likely a player that, depending on the direction of both teams, maybe it's, Caleb and the very win now asset like Alvin Kamara or somebody like that. Or if you're going in the opposite direction, then it's, you're going to sell Caleb and Jameson Williams for CJ Stroud, if the team that is buying Caleb is looking for more of the long-term stuff, Caleb and Xavier Worthy for CJ Stroud. I think that's probably the gap in between the two right now, is some player that fits in between a first and a second and is kind of very structured to the direction of the team that is buying or selling Caleb, if that makes sense. Next tight end question: contender in a 14-team half PPR dynasty, no tight end premium, 10 offensive starters, 10 defensive starters. Traded a late 27 first, 2 seconds for McBride. Done. Easy. McBride. Next question. Ace, that is, yeah, honestly, like, I'm not joking. That was how quickly that processed in my brain. A 27 first in 2 seconds in a 14-team dynasty. I don't care that there's no tight end premium, but if you're a contender in a 14-team league and that ends up being like the 112, 113, 114, that devalues the first a little bit, especially if it is a late first. And the fact that it's 3 years away. 2 seconds is 2 seconds. But you're getting Trey McBride, who in all regards is the second best tight end in fantasy football and in dynasty, and really not even close to being number 3. So easily taking Trey McBride on that one if my camera can figure out how to autofocus. So Trey McBride for sure. Benjamin is in here. I think I just replied to the other trade offer that you got. Would you send AJ Brown and JJ McCarthy for Caleb Darnold and Leggett? That one is more interesting, I think, because the original offer, for those of you that don't know, was AJ Brown and JJ McCarthy for just Caleb and Darnold. But then now he's added Xavier Leggett. I was pretty 50-50 on the trade. I have some AJ Brown bias that comes in here that I would probably prefer AJ Brown over Caleb slightly. And I do prefer JJ McCarthy over Sam Darnold. But adding Leggett in there, at least there is enough of an intriguing potential upside that I could be convinced on that. I think I still lean towards the AJ Brown side for me personally, but again, it's not a bad deal if you wanted to go for it with Caleb. And I do agree on this one that Tua, DJ Moore, and a 27 first is not enough for Joe Burrow. That you'd have to include DK. You don't have to include DK in that whole regard, but if it was Tua, DK, and a 27 first, I think that sounds a lot better. Or even throw in DK, that sounds a lot better too. Mike Gonzalez with the full PPR: Metcalf, Flowers, or DJ Moore. We've got to bench one of these guys. So my personal opinion of the Baltimore Giants game is that Derrick Henry is just going to annihilate them. So maybe use that as a reason to just bench Zay Flowers, as it could be a game script to where Zay Flowers is not necessarily needed. So I think that could be the argument to sit Zay Flowers of these two. DJ Moore has been pretty hot recently. They get a really good matchup against the Minnesota Vikings too, so you get that. And then Metcalf, I think, he has the ability to just be DK Metcalf, like he's kind of due for a touchdown. He hasn't scored in, I think, like 6 or 7 weeks. Some of that was due to injury, but yeah, when was his last touchdown week? I don't know what week that is. I got to go into the individual game logs to see which week this was. Week 7. He has not scored since week 7. He's missed 2 games due to injury, but, in the 4 games that he's played since, he's caught at least 4 receptions, and every single one of them has gone over 50 yards basically in every single game. One game he went 7 for 70, just has not found the end zone. So DK could be due for something this week. And so I think I'd play DK Metcalf and Zay Flowers. And if you want Paulson's backup, Metcalf is flex 50, Flowers is flex 54, and DJ Moore is flex 44. So he would say DJ Moore and DK Metcalf per his rankings too. And Gonzo's also glad that he's not the only one in the chat pulling their hair out at tight end this week. I had to drop Evan Ingram out of his 2 starting lineups this morning, so I'm right there with you. League 1, Hawker Laporta. League 2, Andrews or Laporta? Good question. Holy crap. I would go Hawk over Sam Laporta. And then I think I would go Laporta over Andrews. And kind of the same argument to where the Ravens may not need Zay Flowers. They may not need Mark Andrews either. Although I do think Andrews has a greater probability to score a touchdown than Zay Flowers. So he might be part of the reason that they go up big, and then it turns into a big time Derrick Henry game. So I think that is a tougher decision than Flowers and DJ Moore and all of them. Paulson would have it. He he has Hawk tight end 6, Laporta tight end 7, Andrews tight end 8. So he has 6, 7, 8. So he would say go Hawk over Laporta, and then he would say go Laporta over Andrews too. They're all basically separated by like 0.6 fantasy points. So Hawk and Laporta. Christian, what's up, man? Happy Friday. Hopefully some great ball this weekend. The opportunity for trades when out of it in Dynasty is why Dynasty is the best. Absolutely. And also why I am of the personal opinion that you should not have a trade deadline. I think you should still be able to trade right now. That's why I have my personal opinion. Here for the memes of the $2 super chat. A couple minutes late to this, so I apologize. I didn't see it come up again until I noticed that the number changed on the side over here. This little tiny number that tells me that there's super chats. Usually it pops up on the screen, super chat. But it did not. So thank you, StreamYard. So apologies here for the memes, but thank you so much for the $2 super chat. If Charbonnet is going, am I benching Brian Robinson or James Conner? Holy crap. Personally, I don't think that I could drop or bench Brian Robinson for Zach Charbonnet. I 100% get it, but B-Rob has been a beast, especially without Austin Eckler, and he gets the New Orleans Saints defense. So I think I would play Brian Robinson still, and I think I would still lean towards playing James Conner. All three of these guys are fantastic starts. I just... You have to decide between these three. You can't start all three of these here for the memes. Let's see. Paulson has Charbonnet ranked ahead of the other two, though. Paulson would say Sharb and Connor. But B-Rob's matchup, man. Saints defense, 31 against running backs right now. You can't start all three of these guys. I'm fine with falling back on Paulson to where you can play Sharp and Connor. I just think that Brian Robinson is going to have like a really good game. I have him in my DraftKings lineup right now. I can start 2 of 3. Would have sat Jennings if I knew Walker wasn't playing, and would have played Sharp over Jennings. Yeah. Juwan Jennings. He had 9 targets last night and only caught 2 of them. What are we doing? Annoying. I'll play Zach Charbonnet over B-Rob. I'm fine with it with going with Paulson. He does have Charbonnet almost 2 PPR points projected over Brian Robinson. And Connor's a full point projected over Brian Robinson. There is the argument too that Charbonnet and Connor are going to get receiving work. So, and Brian Robinson really kind of doesn't. He can, but he just doesn't on as much of a consistent basis. So there is maybe that upside too in a more PPR. So yeah, I'm fine with benching Charbonnet for Brian Robinson. The weather last night was absolutely ridiculous. The weather was very frightful. But struggles in the rain and even admitted it. Yep. Yeah. Weather outside was very frightful last night. Where were we? Off of that terrible joke. Started Juwan Jennings yesterday. There we go. We got some more Juwan Jennings at the very top from Connor. I'm sorry. I started I think I started Juwan in one league as well. So last night was it feels bad. Unless you had Kyron or Puka, really. Or defenses. Kind of sucked. Gus Edwards, Chubb, or Kincaid. Need one PPR. I'll go with Nick Chubb on this one. I don't love it, but I'll go with Nick Chubb. I definitely want Chubb over Gus Edwards. I don't even think that that's a conversation. And Kincaid, potentially on the first week back, not even really all that utilized in the first place. I think I'll go with the touch floor of Nick Chubb on this one. Need a running back to replace Walker. 12-team single quarterback league traded away 2 seconds for Brian Robinson to a non-contender. That's why trade deadline should not exist in Dynasty. Boom, right there, done. And we're playing Brian Robinson. We're back on the B-Rob train. Love to see it, Jamie. Love to see it. Christian Superflex half PPR retooling roster team desperately needs running back and sent me Tracy and a second for Waddle in a second. 1 year up. Leaves me with CMC and Stevenson for next year. Have AJ Brown, DK, and Olave. Man, I am taking the Waddle side on this one so easily. I would take Waddle over Tracy straight up, and then you get a second that's a whole year earlier. I think it's just a win-win. You have the two better assets in this deal, in terms of those two comparisons. So give him Tracy, who I'm not even sure. I'm not even sure is even going to be the starter next year. And give him Tracy and go get Jalen Waddle. There's absolutely no reason whatsoever that you should not be taking the Jalen Waddle side on this one. Yeah, that's that. I think Waddle's going to rebound for sure. And I don't think the Tyron Tracy's value goes up from KTC RB20 all that much, if it does at all. It honestly, it could go like all the risk. Like if Tyron Tracy survives the offseason, his value will not go up much more than RB20. Maybe it goes up to RB18 or something like that as we drop some other veteran or something, but like it does not go up significantly more than RB20 to where you're not going to be able to where you're going to be so sad that you sold Tyron Tracy for Waddle in a 1 year earlier second. All the risk is on the other side, where if Tracy does not survive the offseason, he's going to plummet, dude. He's going to be outside the top 25, if not even outside the top 30. So all the risk in Tyron Tracy is all downside risk, and there's no upside risk for value with Tracy. So this is sell Waddle for and sell Tracy in a second for Waddle in a second, and I do that. That's a process, dynasty process trade. I make that trade 12 out of 10 times. Evan, 12-team Superflex lineup start 8+5 IDP. Trades can resume after the playoffs. Strong at wide receiver and quarterback. Only running back is Trey Benson. Any moves that you'd try to make now-ish with the 102+2 playoff first and the 2.02, or stay put? Honestly, I think I stay put. I would let that. That's kind of been my advice to a lot of people that have been asking, what are the moves that I should make whenever the playoffs are over, whenever we can start trading again, blah, blah, blah. Especially if you're kind of in this rebuilding stage, there really isn't anything that you can do, in my opinion, because once the season ends, everybody's healthy. If they are or not, they're all healthy. Values return to, we prioritize the younger guys over the older guys. It's all completely made up off-season potential upside value. That's all that we base our values on, is all of that. So the market quickly resets on a lot of players. All the vets are going to drop. All the young guys are going to go up. And then as we dive into rookie season, those picks are going to become more valuable because we are diving into this rookie class a lot more. So right now, the 102 is a really nice asset, but in March, that 102 is going to be a really, really nice asset. You know what I mean? So especially with those other first-round picks and the 2.02, you want to be one of the more popular guys in the rookie draft, and the best way to do that is to have a bunch of picks. And it seems like you got 4 of the top 14. Love to see it. So I would just hold. It's one of the hardest things to do in Dynasty, is to just kind of be patient and let the days go by without doing anything. But that, I think, is where you're at right now, Evan, where you just gotta let it ride, see how draft season plays out, how the combine goes, how the rumor mills go with teams trying to draft other players, and then ultimately where the NFL draft goes, to see where that 1.02 lands up. If it's, you're basically solidified yourself Genty or Tet McMillan. Fantastic prospects. And then the 2 playoff first, just see kind of what happens with that. And I probably wouldn't trade any of these picks unless something wild comes across your desk. I wouldn't really trade any of these picks till probably after the NFL draft, if you're even going to trade them. So that's kind of how I would just go about it right now, is just enjoy the NFL playoffs, enjoy the Super Bowl, enjoy the combine, take a couple months off, come right back in March and you're like, hey, I got 3 firsts and a 2.02. Love to see it. Then see where you're at. Here for the memes again with the $5 super chat. Thank you so much. I have Bucky and Brees. Pick 2 replacements, please. Happy Friday. Big ups to you, Addy. Appreciate you, man. So we got to choose 2 replacements between Shakir, Najee Swift, Tillman, Braylon, and Hunter Henry. Excellent. So I think that Najee is probably a lock just in terms of the touch floor that he's going to receive and the production that he's been giving you recently. I think Najee is a pretty good bet in here. After that, between Shakir, Swift, Tillman, Braylon, I'm not really looking at Hunter Henry. I think Braylon is solid, but I don't think he offers the same upside as Shakir or Tillman. So I think I'm going to toss Braylon out for the moment. I'm really tempted to go with Khalil Shakir for the reason being that he gets Detroit. Great matchup, by the way. Detroit's secondary, not that great. And that game's probably going to score 80 total points. It's probably, I mean, Detroit Buffalo. Yeah, sign me up for that one. So I think I'd play Najee and Shakir. That's where I lean. Let's see where Paulson goes. I got to move this mic. Shakir is flex 45. Najee is flex 62. Swift is flex 77. Tillman is 74. Braylon Allen is flex 64. So he would have who did I say? Khalil Shakir was really high. He was number 1. And Najee was flex 62. So he agrees with me. His 2 highest ranked players on here would be Shakir and Najee. And then Swift Braylon Allen is a close number 3 for him because he does get Jacksonville. So that's nice. But I don't know if Braylon is necessarily the running back to play in New York with the way Isaiah Davis played last week. So I'd go with Shakir and Najee Harris and go with that. Appreciate you for the $5 super chat again. Thank you for the support, man. All right, where do we? Is there a DLF YouTube membership that's different from the website? There's a, and you can only really see it on desktop. The mobile version, you can't really see it, but it's just like a $2 a month, like, thank you. I would like to just support the YouTube channel kind of thing. There's no additional perks to it or anything. We got rid of all that. But it's just like hey, we appreciate you. Here's $2 a month. So at the end of the year, it'd be $25 a year, essentially 24. But that's all it is. It's just that. The actual membership, for the DLF website is the DLF premium that you have access to all the articles and tools and all that blah, blah, blah. Who are you starting this week in 2 out of 3 flex spots between James Cook, Jerry Jeudy, and Malik Neighbors? I like Jerry Jeudy, and I like James Cook has the Lions' run defense is pretty tough, but does he get receiving work? Maybe. I think Jerry Jeudy's locked. I think I'd go with Malik Neighbors as my other one. Let's see. What does Paulson say? James Cook. Nope, that's Brandon Cooks. James Cook is flex 41. Neighbors is flex 40. And Jerry Jeudy, I can see his name right there, is flex 37. So this is 37 through 41 for Paulson. But his specific ordering would have it go Jeudy and Neighbors. Both 2 fantastic matchups. Neighbors gets the Baltimore pass defense. Jeudy gets the Chiefs pass defense. And his ceiling has been phenomenal. His floor has been even better. So James Cook in a bad matchup against Detroit, very pass-heavy matchup. Maybe he gets a touchdown or 2. That's always a possibility with how high scoring the game could be. But Josh Allen could also be the starting running back for the Bills and take all of his work, just like last week. So I'd play Jeudy and Malik Neighbors. Not my team, but I had a friend ask me this yesterday. Start Tillman, Ridley, or BTJ. I said Ridley with the matchup, but he was leaning Tillman. He hasn't made a decision yet. Just to play devil's advocate, there's a world where the correct answer could be Brian Thomas Jr. without Evan Ingram now. But I don't think I would play. I don't think I would play him. Tillman, like I said, is flex 74 for Paulson. Ridley is flex 48. Ridley was the first name that entered my mind for this one too. Brian Thomas is flex 42. That's actually ahead of Calvin Ridley. I told you there's a world where BTJ is number one on this. Paulson would say BTJ. I lean Calvin Ridley. I just think the matchup is phenomenal against the Bengals. He's there. I think that he is more required for his offense than Cedric Tillman. Because Tillman could be great, but that could be another Jerry Jeudy game. It could be another Elijah Moore game. I think that Ridley is just more integral into his offense. BTJ is kind of the same situation, but I think I trust Will Levis a tiny bit more than Mac Jones. So I think I would go with Ridley too. I think I'd agree with you on that one, Connor. Liam had a bye this week, but for next week, I'm debating what one quarterback to start between Jameis, Herbert, May, or Nix. Boy, I don't even know who any of these guys play next week. Nix gets the Chargers. Jameis gets the Bengals. Well, Nix and Herbert play each other. That's nice. And May gets Buffalo. Yikes. So probably not May. Nix and Herbert play each other. And who did I say? Jameis plays the Bengals. I might play Jameis out of all that against Cincy's defense. I think my tentative answer right now, Liam, would be Jameis next week. But I could, if you ask me this same time next week, I might tell you a different answer. But I think my tentative answer right now is Jameis. Mostly for redraft, what do you think about Hollywood returning? Am I wasting time in roster space stashing him? Yes and no. Is he officially back to where he could play? Because I saw that they designated him to return, but I don't know if that means that he's actually going to play. Chiefs are opening his practice window. Hope has been. Man, I can't read. Hope has been that he'd return this week or next, so he's right on time. First step in getting him back into the action, paving the way for him to play before the regular season ends. I don't think that he is a bad stash because there is potential upside that maybe he comes in and does well. As you know, we're always looking for wide receivers in this Chiefs offense, and Nuke has kind of been up and down. And as has Xavier Worthy. So I don't think that he's a bad stash, but I also would not be expecting a whole lot just because he's coming back from a really big time injury. He hasn't played all year. He really is still not accustomed to this Chiefs offense. And I would not be surprised if the reps that they give him in season are more preparing him for more significant playing time in the playoffs. So it's not like he's going to be out there. I don't really expect him to be out there being a huge part of the offense right now. I think a lot of the usage and work that he's going to get in the routes that he's going to run over the next 2 to 3 weeks, we'll say, is going to be more in preparation for the playoffs. And that might not lead to a whole lot of fantasy production, especially because, I'm assuming you don't play in week 18. So there's 1 week already that we don't care about. So we're down to just 3 weeks of Hollywood. He might not play this week. So we're now down to 2 weeks of potentially for Hollywood. And then would you really start Hollywood in your semifinals or your championship? I don't think I would. So I think that's the argument for why I think that there might be better options for you to stash that you would actually play. I'd look at the running back position and I'd say which one of these handcuff running backs has the highest upside possible. That if something were to happen, I can play that guy and I feel really confident. I can play him I have confidence in Charbonnet. I can play him like I have confidence in Isaac Guerrero, basically like what we had last week. And even last night, he had 20 touches. Didn't account to a whole lot, but he had 20 touches. So what running backs are there on that list on your waivers that I think that there might be 1 or 2 on there that I would personally prefer to stash over Hollywood, because you're going to need something to happen in any regard for either Hollywood to produce well or for that running back to get starter-worthy snaps and touches. But if both those things happen, does one of them have more upside? I think, in my opinion, the running back probably would. I dropped Evan Ingram today for I forget who I picked up. I had picked up Tyler Algiers because somebody dropped him. But who is the other running back I picked up? Because I had to drop him in this league because Evan Ingram was out. Why can't I find the league? Kendra. I picked up Kendra Miller. Just because I think that he's a handcuff to own in case anything were to happen to Kamara. So, I dropped Evan Ingram, picked up Kendra, and I bet you there's probably somebody like that in your league that I might prefer over Hollywood. Would you sell Kyle Pitts in a 25 third for Brian Robinson, 10-team Superflex, half PPR, start 12, having running backs thin with Hall and CMC injured and inconsistent starts from Odunze, Marv, Neighbors, and Lamb? I think I would. I don't know who your other tight end is, but I think I trust Brian Robinson a whole lot more for the production that he's going to give you than Kyle Pitts. So the fact that you only have to add a third to get this deal done, I think, yeah, I'd take Brian Robinson on this one. Daniel's on a bye this week, had Cooper Kupp. Is the 0 a red flag for next week, or can I start him with confidence? I think that you can start him with confidence. We kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, and there's some people down, later on after this, is that the weather. I think the weather was a much bigger factor than people kind of gave it credit for going into last night. So no, I don't. I think that you can still start Cooper Kupp with confidence. Puka still looked great, which I know doesn't necessarily sound good, but the fact that Puka was still able to get it done, I think that some of the production can come back over to Cooper Kupp. It just ended up being a Puka night with Puka and Kyron night, because Kyron had like almost 30 rush attempts or something like that. I think primarily because of the weather, and they were just doing enough to just get the job done. Because when Kyron's running for 5 a pop, and then Puka's, catching, 13 yards of carry or 13 yards of catch, and your offense is moving that way, there's really no reason not to change the script and just come out of there with a win. So no, I wouldn't be worried about Kupp next week because of the donut this week. And yeah, honestly, I've seen that a decent amount of times over the past like 15 years that I've played Dynasty, where it happens one way or another, where your team is on a bye and your team goes off in week 15, and then it puts up a dud in week 16. I've had that happen to me personally a couple times, and I've seen it happen a few other times, or vice versa. Your team sucks in week 15 and then it comes back out and does well in week 16. So the Rams play the Jets. Maybe Puka gets sauce, and then, Kupp becomes the guy on that one. So I'm cool with it. Let's see. Addison, how'd I do yesterday with the trades that we talked about on Twitter? I loved basically all the trades that you made. Well, I got to pull them up so then I can recite them perfectly for everybody else. So the trades that Trax and I kind of went through, we traded Isaiah. I think that one got done. Isaiah Davis for Christian Kirk. I would take Christian Kirk on that one. As a team that's looking down the road. I traded Tracy and a first for Devon Achane on a team that has the bye, and hoping that they can win the championship. So I love that one, Trax. I freaking love that. Upgrading to Devon Achane with Tracy and a late first. And then we sent 2 seconds for Jahmyr Gibbs, 2 late seconds for Jahmyr Gibbs. Love that so much. And then this was Rashad White and Jonnu for Andrews in a 27 first. So we basically went from Jonnu to Andrews, but then we traded White for a 27 first. These are things that you love to see. And then you also traded 2 playoff firsts for Puka in another league? Trax was wheeling and dealing last night, man. 2 late first for Gibbs. And you got 2 late first for, or you sold 2 late first for Puka, right? That was we were able to do that one too. Did I say 2 seconds for Gibbs? I meant it was 2 late firsts for Gibbs. I think I saw the number 2 and I said seconds. 2 late firsts between 109 to 112 for Jahmyr Gibbs. 2 late firsts for Gibbs. And then 2 late firsts for Puka. Wheeling and dealing. You love to see it, man. Love to see it. Where are we at? Terry, would you trade Mike Evans, Hollywood Brown in a mid first for AJ Brown in a mid second? Yes. I essentially view this as Evans in the 107, or is this a playoff first? Might even be later. If it is a team that got into the playoffs, but you're probably projecting them to be one of the first teams gone. So, but maybe they make a run if that's what it is. Mike Evans in the 107 for AJ Brown. I'd take AJ Brown on that one, and then I would take a second over Hollywood. So, boom, perfect. AJ Brown the second on this one. Just wanted to update about my team that was most points for with the most points against. Saw a window, wrote it out. People I needed to lose lost, and our second to last place team put up 200. Missed playoffs by 20 points. Oh my gosh. Second to last place team put up 200. Missed the playoffs by 20 points. Dude, that is unbelievable. I don't I don't know what else to say, man. That's an unbelievably bad beat. I feel so sorry for you. Fantasy football is wild and crazy things happen all the time. It's really sunny out right now. Holy crap. It's like 25 degrees. All right, let's Joseph is we're looking at any moves here to gear up for next year. We've got Burrow, Bijan, Jones, Cup, Zay, Kittle, Devonta, Waddle, DK. Yep. No more draft picks next year after the moves. 11-3 in second place. Playoffs next week. Any moves to make here to gear up for next year or help in the playoffs? Well, you're in second place. I think you ride it out, honestly. I think you just ride this one out. Like, I wouldn't. Maybe you could sell Devontae Adams, maybe, but then you'd probably have to trade him to another contender. That might feel weird, just depending on what you get back. Then maybe you had to play like Jaden Reed. Not sure if I trust that as much. I think you're riding out Adam Thielen. You can't sell him for anything. The only other thing maybe that you could possibly do is try to move some of your youth for better. Like up basically, like if you can still trade, look at the rebuilding teams and are they interested in Waddle and Jaden Reed? And that gets you, I don't know. I'd like to say Puka. Does that get you Nico or somebody like, one of those elite wide receivers that is on a rebuilding team? Would that be tempting to trade down from those to those two, to Waddle and Reed, to DK and Reed? Throw Leggett in there. Throw in basically, Christian Watson, any of those kind of guys. Like, I wonder if you could do maybe a 2-for-1 at the wide receiver position to try to see if you can upgrade to a JSN, a Drake London, a Garrett Wilson, or even go higher than that and move up to a Puka or Nico or AJ Brown or somebody like that. That would probably be the one move that I would look to see if you could try to do. Running back depth is thin, potentially, but I mean, you only got to survive the next 2 weeks. You just need. That's where I feel like a lot of people get a little too in the weeds with depth, especially you have the first round bye, so you just need 2 weeks. So Bijan and Aaron Jones, completely fine. And then you could have that. Alexander Mattison could kind of come back from injured reserve here. So maybe he gives you an extra little bump. We'll see. I don't even know if he has his role back with McCormick taking it, but definitely understand the feeling that the depth is a little bit thin at running back. But for the championship run for this year, I think that you're totally fine. And then you don't need running backs in in the offseason. So I'd be all right with it. Man, I feel way better about selling Brooks for Waddle a month ago. Crazy what happens, how quickly NFL situations can change. 12-team half PPR, Superflex tight end premium, Kendrick Miller or the 3.01? I'd probably hold on to Kendrick Miller. There's potential that if he does well over the next like 3 or 4 weeks to end the season, that maybe he raises his value to a second or somebody that we're now more excited about in the offseason to where maybe he's not, you can't sell him for a second, but you kind of trade him as a second-ish equivalent in some sort of a bigger trade. So where the downside would be if he gets hurt again, you probably won't get the 3.01 for him, but you might still be able to get a third, maybe not the 3.01, but a third. Whereas I think if you wanted to roll the dice a little bit and see what he does over the next 3-4 weeks healthy, then maybe he raises his value up over more than just the third. Based on this season, do you think there will be an overcorrection, undercorrection, or accurate correction on running back values going into next season? More so for redraft, but maybe dynasty as well. Yeah, I think that we'll probably have an overcorrection for the running back position, just because this year in particular seemed really weird. Especially like last year was really weird for wide receivers in that they overproduced. I think, thus we overcorrected, perhaps a little bit too much to where we had more wide receivers than running backs in the first round, and you got a lot of really good running back value in the late first, early second, even the third and fourth rounds for redraft were stacked with a lot of running backs. That's why I loved going wide receiver early, just because you can get the running backs later if you wanted to. Like Achane was, very popularly a third round pick. Kyron was an early second. Saquon was a late first, potentially even an early second. You look at, Brian Robinson was down in there. David Montgomery was down in there in like the mid rounds, and all these other guys. James Conner perennially undervalued. Alvin Kamara perennially undervalued. A lot of these really good top 12 running backs were not valued properly, I think, in redraft. So I think that we're probably going to then overcorrect. I think we might have more running backs and wide receivers in next year's drafts, to where then the wide receivers are probably going to be a bit of a undervalued position, just because of how many receivers didn't really live up to the expectations this year. Like you look at like Jamar Chase has been killing it. Jefferson still really good. Those guys are going to stay at the top, but like Lamb didn't really produce all that well, and still he's producing okay, but I don't know if he's producing up to the level of a top 5, top 6 pick. He might be a guy like Saquon Barkley was, that is kind of, or Kyron was like a fringe 1-2 turn kind of guy. You look at the other positions like DK Metcalf, Jalen Waddle, Brandon Ayuk, all these other wide receivers that didn't really meet and live up to expectations. And even the players that did do well this year, like JSN or McConkey or anybody like that, I don't think they're going to be massively bumped up just because of that production. I think that they're still going to be drafted in favor of other running backs just because of how well the running backs have been playing this year, more or less. So that's at least my prediction as of right now. Dynasty, it might kind of work out the same way, to where running backs might gain a little bit more value. We're seeing it right now with, Christian was able to trade Tracy for Jalen Waddle, to where people might be buying themselves back into the running back position because of some really good production this year. Not to say that some of those players are necessarily wrong to buy into, but just the overall process and structure of how you should be constructing your rosters. It's in Dynasty, it's still just as viable and valuable, honestly, to build through the wide receiver position than running backs. And to use this opportunity, that if you have running backs in Dynasty that have gained value this year, to trade them over to maybe some undervalued or even properly still valued wide receivers, and still build through the wide receiver position. Benjamin's working on 3 separate deals that are working well together. Russ and Ridley for Waddle. I like that a lot. AJ Brown one. Burrow and JT, and a third for Tua, DJ Moore, DK, and a first in Ramondre. Holy, let's just push everything in right now. Again, the only one that I still really I love the Waddle one. I lean still towards the AJ Brown one, and I still lean towards the Burrow JT one. I lean towards your side on 2 of the 3, but I do like the Waddle one. Am I crazy for playing Stone Smart, Gesicki, or Austin Hooper over Kyle Pitts with Evan Ingram now and done? I don't think so. Pitts is always going to have that upside, but if you just need a solid floor from a tight end because he's currently projected 70-30 in your favor, and just move away from the Pitts possible donut, I don't think it's wrong to start Smart or Gesicki. Even Hooper's been doing pretty well. Paulson at the tight end position has Pitts ranked as the tight end 22. That's actually behind Stone Smart. So Paulson is right there with you. He does have Pitts ahead of Gesicki and Hooper, but at least with Stone Smart, I think it's worth a shot, at least. Gesicki might be the best play if you're looking for just overall solidness, but I don't disagree on Stone Smart. Tillman, Tank Dell, Devonta Smith, DJ Moore, pick 2. I'll go DJ Moore and Devonta Smith. Paulson. DJ Moore, wide receiver 22. Devonta Smith, wide receiver, 35. Tank Dell, wide receiver 45. Tillman, wide receiver 42. Paulson agrees. DJ Moore and Devonta Smith. Are you worried about Mahomes producing in the fantasy playoff Steelers championship week? Would you trade off Mahomes for another quarterback in Dynasty, and how might you go about moving him? Oh. So let's put a little water on my mouse pad. The Steelers defense doesn't necessarily terrify me a lot for the quarterback position. I just pulled up. They are ranked 29th. Well, if you put it the other way. Hold on, I got it sorted the wrong way. They are ranked 4th against the quarterback position, but they have given up. I mean, just recently they gave up 21 to Jameis Winston, 28 to Joe Burrow, 19 to Lamar, 18 to Winston the week before that, 25 to Dak Prescott. So like they've given up points to the quarterback position. You look at the quarterbacks that haven't done well against them, like Kirk Cousins didn't do well, but he's been super up and down. Bo Nix had 15 fantasy points, but that was his second game ever. Justin Herbert, but that was also back when the Chargers weren't really all that good. That was week 3. Joe Flacco. Dak did well. Aiden O'Connell didn't do well. No surprise there. Aaron Rodgers had 18 fantasy points. That's pretty solid. Daniel Jones, 13. They held Jaden Daniels to 10. So there's that. But the last 4 weeks, Lamar, 19. Winston, 17-7. Joe Burrow, 28. Winston again, 21. So I'm not necessarily worried about Patrick Mahomes. This could be a greater conversation to where maybe it's better for you to trade off of Pat Mahomes just in Dynasty for another player if you are able to get a quarterback that might be producing better. If you can move off of Mahomes for Hurts, or maybe you can move him for Burrow, or maybe Herbert or Love or Bo Nix. And maybe you can possibly get something on top of some of those players too. Like if you can move Mahomes for Herbert and another good piece, or you could move from Mahomes over to Joe Burrow. I don't think that those are necessarily the bad decisions either. So I think this is a 2-part question, more or less. No, I'm not worried about Mahomes against the Steelers to where I would want to move him. But I would consider moving off of Patrick Mahomes for another quarterback, depending on who the quarterback is and if you get any sort of pluses attached to him. Like Mahomes for Baker in a first, I feel like that could be semi-realistic depending on the direction of some other teams. and you might get better production out of Baker than Mahomes over the last 3 weeks. So I don't think that those are. I don't think that this question should be framed as a should you trade off of Mahomes in Dynasty because of the Steelers matchup? No, but I would be open to the possibility of trading away Patrick Mahomes. Offseason trade thoughts for adding value. Move Nico for like a BTJ plus a first or similar, sitting on Rasheed, Ladd, Pittman, Wandell, Pop, McMillan, Deontay. Oh boy. I don't know if I want to move Nico for BTJ in a first. I like the process for it. I just don't know. I love Nico so much that I just don't know if BTJ gets to that point yet. And depending if that's like a late first or 26 first or something like that, I just don't know if that's the right move. I will be once we hit January or maybe February. I'll have to see how ADP kind of looks, but I'll be going back to the premium versus the generic player videos to where you can add value in that regard, just with similar production. I don't know if I would do that with Nico for BTJ in a first though. Rasheed, Ladd, Pittman, Wandell, Pop, McMillan, Deontay. I think maybe another way you could go about it is to try to see if you can move like Pittman or Wandell or even McMillan now that McMillan just had a really good game. Move them over for draft picks, then use those draft picks to add up to get better assets. To where like you're essentially trading a second and Pittman for a first, but you go from Pittman to another second, then you trade those 2 seconds for a first, or Wandale to another second, Wandale and a third for a second, then that second with like another second for, or that second and Pittman for, I think that maybe if you can find specific trades and construct things the right way, you might be able to get that first using Pittman, Wandale, McMillan, and Deontay potentially. And especially rather do that than do it for Nico for like BTJ in a first or something like that. I like the idea. I like the thinking, but I just love Nico Collins too much. Thoughts on selling Saquon after the year? Feel like there's a lot of value that you can get for him, especially if he joins the 2K club. Yeah. The same exact thing. I was trying to sell Saquon before the season, and it was really just for one specific reason. In fact, the video, I don't know if you watched the video, but you can go back and try to find it. I can try to find it right now. But I'm going to be making another one, and I can guarantee you that it's going to have Saquon Barkley in there. But it's essentially, here, I just found it. That's the link down in the comment or in the chat. Essentially, the argument is that we should be selling age 27 and older running backs when they hit top 12 RB1 dynasty value, because it's very hard for those running backs to ever gain value ever again without having a Saquon Barkley level season, which having a Saquon Barkley level season is ridiculous. I mean, Derrick Henry is doing very, very similar stuff. Like statistically, he has over 1,400 yards right now too. And he's on pace on the season for 1,850 yards and 17 touchdowns and another 3 receiving touchdowns. So like he's on pace for, in totality on the season, 2,000 yards and 20 yards as well. Derrick Henry is. And his value hasn't gone up drastically, like in terms of him being like a top 10 dynasty running back. Like he's RB14 on Keep Trade Cut right now. Saquon Barkley is RB3. But they're doing very, very similar things. So, but the reason is that because whenever they get to that price point at that age, it's hard for them to gain a lot of value. It's hard for them to maintain the production to continue valuing them that way. So essentially, it's really hard for them to gain value. It's, I would say, difficult to maintain that value because they have to sustain the production that leads them to being valued that highly. Because the only thing that's valuing them that highly is that elite production. And so if there's any fallback on production, then their value is going to go down. So it's hard to maintain the value. Not as hard as it is to gain value, but it's still fairly difficult, I should say, to maintain it when they're that valuable. But it's really easy to lose it when they're that old. It doesn't take a whole lot. It could take an injury, just losing production, just in general. If there's another running back that's coming in behind them, I mean, look how quickly Zeke Elliott fell off. Look how quickly Dalvin Cook fell off. And those guys weren't even valued as RB1s. Those guys are valued as like top 20 running backs, and you can lose so much more value whenever you're valued as an RB1 at that age. Austin Eckler was valued as an RB1 at that age, then did not do well in 2023, then went over to Washington and now is hurt. And like his value from basically being a dynasty RB1 in 2022 to now plummeted. Nick Chubb, very same way. Nick Chubb was a dynasty RB1 heading into the 2023 season. Major knee injury in week 3, done. He is now currently the RB. Where is he? 46. Dynasty RB 46. And he was valued last August as a top 12 dynasty running back. So that's the whole premise of the video. That's where, and that's why I was in on selling Saquon Barkley before the year, because he and Christian McCaffrey, another example of potentially a player that's going to be losing value this year that was valued as an RB1 coming into last year. I just picked the wrong running back to sell. I was telling people maybe you should sell Saquon and keep CMC because it's CMC, but I had it the opposite way. So I'm totally on board with selling Saquon Barkley in the offseason this year, especially because he's only gained value compared to where he was at last year. So I'm even more on that. Shout out Zach Sharp for putting 45 on me. That was just one where you just got to accept it's not your year. Sometimes fantasy football just likes to tell you, hey, now it's not your time, buddy. But like Rocky says, it's not how many times you get knocked down, it's how many times you pick back up. My wife and I just went through all the Creed movies. So with older running backs staying relevant longer, any guys you think would be good buys in the offseason? This is a good question too. So this is almost basically the opposite side of the coin for the conversation that I was just talking about, to where I want to sell running backs that are older running backs that are valued as RB1s, but I want to buy older running backs that are valued basically outside the top 15. So had you followed that strategy and you would have sold off of Saquon and you would have sold off of CMC. Hurts to sell off of Saquon based on what he's doing right now. But had you sold off of those guys and you bought into Derrick Henry, you'd be doing pretty well. And you bought into Joe Mixon, you'd be doing pretty well. Alvin Kamara, you'd be doing pretty well. Even if you bought into James Conner and Tony Pollard and David Montgomery, those guys are, Monty's, I think, a fantasy RB1 right now too. And then Pollard and Conner are top 20 guys. So that's the opposite side of the coin. So yes, I would like to buy aging veterans in season. I usually don't buy running backs. Like my typical dynasty philosophy is just don't buy running backs at all between January to May, because so much can happen. So much can change. The NFL draft changes things. Free agency changes things. Running back values are just all over the place between January and May, that I just don't want to predict that a guy is going to be a starter and then a bomb gets dropped on you. An Adam Schefter bomb gets dropped on you, and now all of a sudden your plan is ruined. But I'd like to do it, as close as we can to the season, because then it also insulates you from injuries as well, to get as close as you can to the season, so you know who's healthy, who's not, who's a starter, who's not, and then that's when you go and you buy Alvin Kamara next year, you buy David Montgomery again next year, maybe you buy Brian Robinson again next year, maybe it's Tony Pollard again or James Conner again. I'm on board with buying a lot of those old guys. And yeah, Joe Mixon might be kicking it around for a few more years, honestly. I totally agree with that. I think Kamara is going to do the same thing with his extension. I like buying into those guys, especially at cheapened values, because everybody loves Tyron Tracy. Everybody loves Isaiah Pacheco is going to get a lot of value probably in the offseason. People are going to talk up Trey Benson, and ETN maybe gains value. Brooks gains value. Maybe Bigsby gains value. the rookie class comes in. There's so many things that changes running back values in the offseason that makes a lot of these veterans very, very cheap to acquire, but easy for you to still, but easy to buy and still use because they're still very, very productive. What is everyone's opinion on conditional trades for Dynasty? I personally don't like it, but there was a conditional trade in one of my leagues, and we were debating on whether to let it go through. Yeah, I'm not like anti-conditional trades. I just don't know if they really have a place in Dynasty. I would like there to be some sort of way where it could be implemented through the software or platform that you have. So I don't like the whole like handshake agreement on the back end to where it's just like, hey, we can make this move right now, but I could turn that pick into this pick, or if that player gets hurt, then I'll trade it into this. I don't like the backhandedness, not the backdoor handshakeness of it. I wish there was a way that the fantasy platforms would be able to implement it, because then I would be all about it. I'd be in on, hey, if this guy, does super well for you, then I'll trade you a second right now. But if I win the championship, it'll turn into a first. I wish that there was a way that the software could implement that. I just don't like the behind the curtain, Wizard of Oz kind of thing going on. So I don't. If it's already done, I feel like that just depends on what the condition is. It was pretty fair as it was, but the condition was a second and the deal would turn into a first. Oh, that literally just came out of my head when I said that. I did not read this message whenever I said that. I'm not opposed to it. I think I would let it go. But if you as a league are concerned that this is going to open up another whole can, then maybe I would nip it in the bud and just not let it go through, and just say, hey, if you want to buy the guy, then just pay the first round pick. But I'm on board with trades that are like this. I am totally on board with trades that are conditioned upon winning the championship, that are conditioned upon this player scoring X amount of points this year or averaging this amount of points, and then my pick goes up, or anything like that. I think the NFL does it. I think that's one thing that fantasy football could implement that we currently don't really have that the NFL does. That league in particular, we have two commissions, and both people involved in the trade both instantly made it clear it was conditional. I think then I'd be all right with it. Yeah, if you're really worried about opening up a whole nother can of something, then just then you could just say, hey, this is not something that we want to do in this league, so we're just not going to allow it. I'm on board with that. But if you guys are cool with it, and like you said, both people were very communicative about it, then I think that it could work. If you're using rookie pick 11 overall in trade, what running backs would you target to add for a contender? Any sneaky running back schedules do you believe in McCormick for the playoffs? So first of all, I would never ever trade a first round pick for Sincere McCormick. I'm making a video in the offseason. I've been kind of framing it out on the rules of first round picks, or just the rules of picks in general. Here's how you kind of value them. Here's what it would take for me to trade them. I don't know. I'm going to value this as a first round pick, because in a 12-team league, this would be a first. In a 10-team league, 2.01 and 2.02 are essentially first round picks in my head, because the average league is a 12-team league, or at least the average value, in my opinion. So I'm going to name this a first round pick. And my rule right now is that for me to trade a first round pick, I need to know that I'm getting 2 years of production out of this player. It's a kind of tough rule, but I think it allows you to eliminate a lot of potential mistakes of trading that first round pick. And I'm not talking like I know that I'm going to get 2 years of production out of Derrick Henry. No, you don't. He's 31 years old. So I think that, and I'm by making that rule, I feel like I am just inherently leaving it up to you guys on how you feel like you, and that's ultimately what I want to do. But you just can't know that you're going to get 2 years out of Derrick Henry. That's the issue with a lot of these running backs and why it's so hard to trade a first for running backs. Now, that being said, the running backs that I would put my stamp of approval on for trading a first round pick would be just going down through the list. Obviously, any of the top guys: Bijan, Gibbs, Barkley, Achane, Hall, Kyron, Walker, Bucky, Jacobs, James Cook. I'd be fine trading a first for. That's basically like boom. Those guys I feel confident in the first. The other guys that I would add on top of that would be David Montgomery, Joe Mixon, and maybe Alvin Kamara. I don't know. I don't think I wouldn't feel great about it for Alvin Kamara, but but everybody else, I would not trade a first right now for James Brown. I would not trade a first for Derrick Henry. I would not do it for Chuba. I would not do it for Pacheco. I would not do it for B-Rob. I would especially not do it for Tyron Tracy. Najee, Connor, Pollard, Swift. I'm not trading a first for any of these guys. McCormick, I don't even know if he has a job in 3 weeks. I don't even know if he has a job in 2. So I'm not trading a first round pick for Sincere McCormick. So out of that list of running backs, that's basically all I'm looking at for the running back position to trade a first for. Now, if you're looking at like schedules just over the last couple weeks, Bucky Irving has a tremendous schedule, assuming that he's healthy. Pollard has a good schedule. JT has a pretty solid schedule. Bijan has a really good schedule. James Conner has a pretty solid schedule. He gets Carolina and then the Rams. There's Bucky, James Cook, Monty, and Gibbs. But Jacobs has a good schedule up till week 17. Week 17 is really rough against the Vikings, but volume alone might just be fine. And that's like your top 10 or 11 right there for the running back position. So I personally would not buy Chuba for the 111. You can't tell me that that you have 2 years worth of production out of him. His contract is essentially not even a 2-year deal. It's like a 1-year deal with 2 team options attached to it. Like he might not even be on the Panthers in 2026. And so I'm not trading a first round pick for Chuba. Do we still like Waddle over Addison? I still do. Addison's production recently has definitely closed the gap. But I still do prefer Waddle over Jalen Waddle over Jordan Addison for Dynasty. Was able to move Kendrick for Justice Hill. I have Kamara. The other owner had Henry. It made sense. Was able to add Kendrick for Justice Hill. I love this. Yeah, just swapping handcuffs. But I think just in a vacuum, I'd rather have Kendrick than Justice Hill. Give me Kendrick Miller on that one. DK and Waddle for Nico. I'd take Nico on that one. Package up those 2 really weird wide receivers. Go get Nico Collins. Boom, you're done. Nico. Any tight ends that for next year that I should get from free agency or buy low? I would look towards Brenton Strange. I would look towards I think Michael Mayer just in general is pretty solid. Of course, we're going to get closer to him potentially getting into free agency in a couple years and getting out of being behind Brock Bowers. But I think Mayer has proven that he's talented, just not as talented as Brock Bowers, which 31 other teams do not have a tight end that is as talented as Brock Bowers. Theo Johnson, I think, is a good name to look at. JT Sanders, Ben Sinnott, those are the easy names too. I would take a look at who else is on this list. Noah Gray, he's gained value, but could be interesting. Gesicki is a free agent at the end of the year. I would like to say that maybe he gets an opportunity somewhere else to be a more consistent every week kind of guy, or maybe he stays in Cincy and they do not retain T. Higgins to where then he's kind of maybe in that second target range and role that he was at different points this season, where it was Chase and then it was everybody else. And Gesicki kind of ascended to being the number 2 target. So that's a possibility, I think, with Gesicki. Schoonmaker, I think, is another good name. He's kind of like a lesser version of Michael Mayer, to where he did well with Jake Ferguson out. So I think that he could be interesting. And yeah, I think that's a pretty solid list. Cade Stover. There's another one right there. Who even are the free agent tight ends? Ben Sinnott. Yep. Disley is a free agent, so maybe, Stone Smart. Johnny's a free agent. Wait, this is 2020. Not signed with. I was looking at last year. So that's Gesicki. Ertz is a free agent, so that's where Ben Sinnott comes from. Harrison Bryant, I still think that he's good. He just hasn't found an opportunity. So I still believe in Harrison Bryant. Yeah, man, Ian Thomas, what a blast from the past. Yeah, no one in here that's really like, if they leave, that opens the door for somebody else. And nobody on here really that I'm just like, if they were to go somewhere else from free agency, it's more just the opportunity from year 1, year 2, year 3 kind of guys that maybe could gain value in the offseason if something were to shake out. This is probably my favorite way to address the conditional trades. Is I don't love it, but it's tolerated. I think that's probably a fantastic summary of what's going on, of my personal feelings with conditional trades. I don't like it, but it's tolerated. How high could we expect Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland to go in a 1-point tight end premium league? I've got a playoff first as well as picks 2.02 and 2.05. It is kind of draft dependent, but I would not be shocked if either one of those guys went as top 6 or 7 picks, probably. Maybe even squeak the top 5. I think Tyler Warren could squeak the top 5. I don't know if Loveland will. But Warren, especially I've seen the mock drafts of people having Tyler Warren drafted by Kansas City. They're like, oh well, they're gonna win the Super Bowl again. Travis Kelce's gonna retire, and then they're just gonna replace Travis Kelce with Tyler Warren. And if that were to happen, I mean, what the heck, man? But I think if Tyler Warren finds himself in a good situation, he's probably going to end up in this high of a premium league for tight ends. He's probably going to end up being a top 6 or 7 pick. He could possibly fall a little bit lower. Like Bowers was in normal Superflex leagues, like the 106-ish, 107. But in 2 PPR tight end premiums, which I'm assuming that this is what it is because it's 1 point PPR, then an extra point for tight end premium. So it's 2, right, Drew? In those leagues, I bet you Bowers probably got up to being a top 3 or 4 pick. You were probably debating between him and Neighbors, and probably ahead of the other quarterbacks in the class, I'd assume. Yeah, 2. Where did Bowers go in your rookie draft last year? Or did you not have one? Like, is this like a new league that you did a startup for? Bowers still at 106 or 107? Oh, okay, cool. So if Bowers, but I could see it going 2 ways. If people were like, "Oh wow, I should have drafted Bowers earlier," that they want to artificially raise the value of Tyler Warren, or if your league just in general still values tight ends that way, I could see Tyler Warren as a lesser prospect compared to Bowers being a playoff first. But I think he's a playoff first already in normal leagues. Warren could be a playoff first in just normal Superflex leagues, to where if you add the premium, that it, bumps him up into being a top 6 or 7 pick. Loveland, I think, is going to stay down, and I would be kind of surprised if he got inside the top 10. I think in a super flex tight end premium. Remember when people thought Tank Dell was the wide receiver one in Houston? Always Nico. Last flex spot in half PPR dynasty: Ridley, Thielen, Keenan, Ramondre, or Addison. Thielen. Thielen has, Thielen has been on a tear the last 2 weeks. Another good matchup. Give me Adam Thielen this week. What are some of your favorite trades that you made this season? Ooh. I traded, before the season started, I traded Joe Burrow for Jaden Daniels and Brian Robinson. That was pretty fun. Joe Burrow's been fantastic, but to get Daniels and Brian Robinson was pretty fun. Back in I was able to acquire Puka. I think I paid the 104 and like a second for Puka back before rookie draft started. That 104 ended up being Malik Neighbors. So I effectively traded Neighbors in a second for Puka, which I would still do right now. But I was really happy about that. I just love the fact that I can have Puka Nacua right now. What other trades did I do? What was my I made a couple in this league that I was 13-1 in. And I'm the number one pick by far, or number one seed by far. And let's see, what did I trade? I traded Kirk Cousins for Cooper Kupp. That one was fun. Cousins was that's a salary cap league, and I wasn't gonna have Cousins at the end of the year, so I think I fleeced that guy to get Cooper Kupp because I have Kupp under contract for next year too. Let's see. I traded. Oh, this was the fun one. I traded three first round picks for BTJ, Breece Hall, and Debo, I think. I don't make a lot of trades, but when I do, they're in there. Those are some fun ones. Who are your top offseason buys? Waddle, Ayuk. JSN's probably going to be a really big buy for me in the offseason. Dak Prescott is probably going to be a big buy for me in the offseason. Same with probably Bo Nix, honestly. Baker will be a big buy for me in the offseason. Who else are we looking at? AJ Brown has been slipping. He's the wide receiver 11 on KTC, which I think is absolutely wild. So he's going to be a buy for me at that price. Rashee Rice, always in forever. Probably T. Higgins, probably DK Metcalf again. Those are probably going to be a decent number of players that I'm looking to target in the offseason. He said no to Nico for DK and Waddle. Can you pass that along to basically like offer that trade to the Amon-Ra, the Lamb, and the Puka manager and see what they say? Sold Henry and Barkley before the season. Hopefully you got a good return. I think in some instances, I think that if depending on what you sold these guys for, it might still be a net positive. That video got me to sell Saquon preseason on Rebo because I was terrified of injury and nobody would even bite for a single first. Ended up getting JSN, and that was looking rough for a while too. Lost value on it, but luckily JSN turned it around. I think once we get into the offseason, I would not be shocked if JSN and Saquon Barkley were valued roughly the same. So you lost value in the short term, but you gained it back in the long term. Hopefully. Is there any quarterbacks we want to buy low after the season ends? Yeah, Bo Nix and Baker Mayfield and Dak Prescott and JJ McCarthy, probably even Russell Wilson. I bet you Russell Wilson is going to be like my favorite super cheap quarterback because I think that he stays in Pittsburgh and he's been pretty solid. So I think that he's probably going to be my favorite, like super cheap kind of guy. Maybe Goff, maybe Purdy, maybe Jordan Love, depending on where he ends up. Maybe it's May and Caleb. There's a lot of really good quarterback names that it really just depends on how the offseason and the community values a lot of these guys. Especially with the rookie class coming in. We'll see where Shador and Cam Ward end up. That could maybe bump some players down. But yeah, I think those names I listed, basically the 4 or 5 rookies, if you want to include Penix in there, but the 4 rookies specifically with McCarthy, Russell Wilson, Baker Mayfield, Brock Purdy, Dak Prescott. Going off not buying running backs in the offseason, I bought CMC in February, got burned bad, was able to save my season, though, trading for Jordan Mason in week 3. Nice for Jalen Wright and drafted Grendo. Hey. Handcuffs, baby. Tony Pollard should be able to play. Thank goodness, because he was not practicing today. This is, to go back to the conditional trade, this is why I wish that the software had an implementation for it. Because then it would like lock both picks, you know. Where does JT rank among those players that you would send a first for? JT's in a weird boat. I think he falls slightly on the side of, yes, I would still pay a first round pick for Jonathan Taylor, but he would not be among one of my first choices. Where it basically, if I were to be in conversations with a couple of people and I could say, and they basically said, I got an agreement to send a first round pick for JT, an agreement to send a first round pick for Kenneth Walker, an agreement to send a first round pick for David Montgomery, and an agreement to send a first round pick for Kyron Williams. I would take Kyron first. Then I'd probably take Walker. Then I'd probably be intrigued, but to take Monty over, trade a first for Monty instead of trading a first for Jonathan Taylor. I don't know. It's really, but basically my point of all of that was to say that he would just not be my first option to really buy a first for. I would rather, instead of sending a first for JT, I would rather try to see if I could then buy another running back for cheaper. Could I get Alvin Kamara for cheaper? Could I get even James Conner for cheaper? Could I get Tony Pollard for cheaper? I'm sure I could. But like, could I actually make those moves instead of paying a first for JT and just keep the first? So he's in this weird area of value and rankings, I think, to where I just don't know if I think he's worth the first. I just don't know if I'd pay it. I don't know if I like that. You know, like a nice car. Like, I think that car is worth $20,000, but I don't know if I'd pay that. You know what I mean? Like, I bet you I could get a very similar car for like 12 and be done with it. Vince needs 2 for flex between Dowdle, BTJ, DK, and Waddle. Dowdle, I feel like, is a very locked in player this week against Carolina, based on his usage and role the past couple weeks. So I'd go him, and I would go probably DK Metcalf. I haven't had to check what Paulson says on this one, but Paulson has Rico as flex 17. DK Metcalf is flex 50. Waddle is flex 63. And Brian Thomas Jr. is flex 42. So he would say BTJ and Dowdle for sure, but then BTJ. I'm tempted to go with DK Metcalf, though. Although if he gets Jaired, BTJ and Metcalf are not separated by a whole lot. They're separated by basically half a PPR point. But BTJ has Mac Jones. I think I still play DK Metcalf. They're at home, so that's a benefit. I think I'd play DK Metcalf still over BTJ, but that's close. Dowdle for sure, and then I want DK. Paulson would say BTJ. From earlier scenarios, Sincere's on that roster. I wasn't going to move. Oh, all right. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for misreading that and thinking that that's what your thinking was. I think that McCormick is going to be fine. I mean, if you look at the playoff strength of schedule for the remainder of the year, it's a tool on 4 for 4. Number one strength of schedule for running backs for the remainder of the year is the Vegas Raiders. So McCormick has a fantastic schedule that if he maintains that role, it might be better to you might be able to just get away with playing McCormick for the next 2-3 weeks and then keeping the 111. That might be more optimal. So, but it also depends on the running backs that I would pay for that you can get with it first. Would you potentially add a 26 first to get Jalen Hurts? I have 3 no 2025s to the 111. So the 111 and a 26 first for Hurts, I'd do that in a heartbeat in a Superflex league. Start Russell Wilson with no Pickens against Philly or start Kirk Cousins against Jacksonville. Also, I do have the option to go with Mark Andrews instead of either of them. I think it would start Kirk Cousins. I don't love it, but the matchup is way better and he has better weapons. So I'd probably go with Kirk Cousins just because I think it's very easy for him to get to 12 or 13 fantasy points. That for Andrews, that might be an above average day for Andrews or even a slightly above that day. And Russ, I don't know if he gets there with no Pickens against Philadelphia's secondary. So I think I go Kirk Cousins. If Bucky's out this week, should I start Isaiah Davis or Sincere McCormick? I'd probably go Isaiah Davis for the matchup. Paulson has Isaiah Davis as flex 78, and he has McCormick as flex 68. So they're not separated by a whole lot. I don't know if Davis's ranking at all involves some suspicion that Brees might still play. They're not separated by a whole lot, though, but Davis has a much better matchup. So I'd probably go Isaiah Davis. Jason went 4th round in our startup, and I got Saquon in the 7th. Wow. Love Jason. Knew the talent was there. Love to see it. I've created a monster. Just made the playoffs in my quick rebuild. I've created a monster, but nobody wants to see. Have Herbert, Williams, Tua, HM, B-Rob, Kamara, Lamb, Neighbors, Garrett Wilson, Puka, Rome, Rice, Bowers, Hawk, and Joku. Holy crap. Dude, you're like Dr. Frankenstein, man. You're just like in your lab, you're cooking things up. You built yourself a freaking super team. Whew. You love to see it. Well done, Chris. You should be the one sitting up here and tell everybody how you did it. Locked up picks 1 through 4. I have 2 more firsts, including mine. 2 26s. Should I use some of these picks to grab any upgrades or just let it ride and trade the picks for hammers after the season? I think if you wanted to upgrade your quarterback position, you could. Is this one quarterback or 10-man start 12? Is this super flex or one quarterback, Chris? Mike also sold Barkley for Jason before the season. Took a while, but I'm okay now. Yeah, it all came back around for Jason. You love to see it. I'd start Isaiah Davis over Najee too. But I'd start Najee over Sincere if these are the same. Super flex for Chris. Okay. So I think one thing that you could do with all of your first is just go and get a stud quarterback. Like, can you upgrade off of Caleb and go get Lamar or go get, you might be able to go get like Josh Allen or somebody like that. Or like, how can you lock down the quarterback position? I think would be the next one. Cause I think your wide receiver position is more or less done. The fact that you have Lamb, Neighbors, Puka, that's like 3 top 8 wide receivers right there. Wilson's another maybe top 10 or 11. Rice, in my opinion, is a wide receiver 1 still in Dynasty. Rome is quickly ascending, especially if Keenan were to be gone. Bowers, you can't get any better than him, and you got Hawkins and Joku behind them. Your running backs are always going to be – you're just going to be turning out running backs every single year. That's like an annual game that you're just going to have to play. But the fact that you have wide receivers done, tight end is done, quarterback mostly done, but could you make quarterback even better? That would be the one move that I would be looking to do. Can you send Caleb in 2 firsts and just go get Josh Allen? Is that possible? I'd love that. Or Caleb in a 1st and 2nd and go get like Lamar, or Caleb in 2 firsts and go get Lamar. That might be the way to go. But that's probably the one move that I would probably be looking to make is I could be like, bam, that's the last thing I need. That's that chemical X right there in the formula. But other than that, I'd probably just let it ride. I would outside of that, I probably wouldn't really touch the only other thing that I could maybe, if you wanted to do, is do like Rome in a first and go like, can you turn Rome in a first and go get to like Nico? Or does Garrett Wilson in a first get you Jamar Chase? Like those are really the only possible moves that you have. But the fact that it's a start 12 and you have this much depth is insane. PBR first seed, my team is Hurts, AJ Brown, Jamar Chase, McLaurin, B-Rob, Kraft. Start 1, Spears, Vidal, Isaiah Davis, or Madison. If Tony Pollard is actually out, I just got the notification that said he should play, but if he is somehow out, I'd play Spears with this whole entire group. If Pollard plays, and then I'm assuming Brees is probably out, I'd go with Isaiah Davis. And then I would go with the Cowboys defense. Let's see, does Paulson agree with me on that one? He has Cowboys and Chargers back to back, but I think I'd play the Cowboys defense. And then Elliott or Lutz, I'd probably go with Lutz. Paulson has kicker defenses too. He has Lutz as kicker 5. Elliott's way down there. So, yep. So I'd go Spears if Pollard is out, Isaiah Davis if otherwise. Cowboys defense, Will Lutz. If Kamara doesn't play, do I play McCormick, Chubb, or Kendre? I think of this group, I would play Nick Chubb. What does Paulson have to say about it? Chubb is running back 38. Sincere McCormick is running back 27. Kendre is outside the top 50. So Paulson would say Sincere. Yeah, you know what? I changed my answer to Sincere. I forgot that Cleveland played Kansas City and how good Kansas City's rush defense was. So I'd probably go Sincere McCormick as well. Russ in a 4-point per passing touchdown league or James Cook in the Superflex spot. Both bad matchups. I'd usually go quarterback for the floor, but with no Pickens, the game total says Buffalo scores points this week. I think I would lean James Cook in the Superflex spot. I think it's very likely that Russ doesn't even score 10 points. But I think that James Cook could potentially get there. He could find the end zone once or twice. He could catch a few passes, rush for like 50 yards. I think I'd probably go with James Cook in the Superflex spot. I'd agree with you on that one. I would start Zach Charbonnet over Jonathan Taylor this week. Yeah. That's where I was at. I just kicked the guy with Josh Allen out of the playoffs, and I have his first, which would be the 1.01. Holy crap. I mean, give him the 101 for Josh. I would go get Josh Allen. Zach Ertz or DK, 2 PPR 10 in league. I'm leaning towards Zach Ertz. It's not a bad thought. Let's see. Zach Ertz is projected 10 PPR fantasy points. That would raise up to 14 with Paulson's projection of 4 receptions. So 14 fantasy points for Zach Ertz. Paulson's got Metcalf at I scrolled past him at 14. If you just need points, I'm fine with going Zach Ertz. If you're just like, man, I just don't want the donut, not necessarily the donut, but I don't want a dud. And I just need him to score 8 to 10 points and I'll be happy. Then I think I would play Zach Ertz. But if you, for some reason, need that upside, if you need the ceiling, I mean, Zach Ertz does not have the ceiling. So DK would be the ceiling guy. Like if you're projected to lose by 15 or 20 points or something like that, play DK Metcalf, hope he goes over 100 and scores. But if you just need the points, I'm fine with going with Zach Ertz. Mike, I honestly didn't notice. I didn't notice Najee Harris. That's the one I didn't notice, but I thought maybe that was a joke or something like that, but I thought it was funny. Game statuses for the Browns. Cedric Tillman. Cedric Tillman is out. Cedric Tillman is not playing. So to everybody that I was potentially giving advice to play Cedric Tillman, a la Relentless right here, you're playing Sincere McCormick. Cedric Tillman was announced out literally 4 seconds ago. So there we go. Sincere McCormick. All right. We got to the end of the questions. I didn't really. All I did was just tell you that Tillman was out, but you were going to figure that out when you saw a big old O next to his name. But appreciate the question, man. All right. Do we think Bucky is playing? I wouldn't be shocked if Bucky plays, but I would be slightly surprised, I think. As of right now, I would go in and anticipating that Bucky Irving is not going to play. He didn't practice today either. Yeah, he missed practice. I'd be surprised. I would be surprised if Bucky plays. I wouldn't be shocked. Like, I wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, he is playing. I'd be like, oh, all right, Bucky's playing. That's. All right. Got to the end of the questions. So I think this is where we're going to call it with a slightly shorter week. We didn't get to the 2-hour mark. If Bucky doesn't play, do I start Nick Chubb or Gus Edwards? I'd play Nick Chubb. I don't trust Gus whatsoever. I'd play Chubb. And I think Paulson would agree with me on that one too. They're basically projected the same amount of points. I'd play Nick Chubb. Tillman is out. Yep. Yeah, they just announced it. Bleacher Nation fantasy app. Real time. And Njoku being questionable does shock me. I'm surprised that he is questionable. So we'll have to see. I don't know if he actually plays. I would be shocked if Njoku plays. All right. That's gonna do it this week for another Friday AMA. Appreciate everybody for hanging out for the past hour and over 40 minutes. So yeah, thank you for all the support. Like the video, subscribe if you're not. And of course, if you have any more questions or follow-ups or anything like that, you can drop a comment down in the video replay of this. Like it's just a normal, regular YouTube comment on any other videos on DLF. I'm the one that answers all the comments there. So you're going to get me so I can help you out beyond just this video as well. So appreciate everybody for sticking around. Good luck this week in your week 15 matchups. Hopefully we are back again next Friday where we can discuss moving on to the championship. Hopefully you guys win this week. We're on to the semifinals. You win next week, on to the championship. And we are right there, but 1 week at a time. 1-0, 1-0, 1-0. That's that James Franklin mentality. All right. Appreciate everybody for hanging out. Good luck in your matchups this week. See you guys again next week, same time, 12 p.m. Eastern time for another Friday AMA. Appreciate you guys. Have a fantastic weekend. Catch you later. Peace.